However, you needed to visit Parker to get a few water rights. We'll just ought to see if we are able to make a deal with Parker one manner or every other. We can't run out of pay, so one can be no true. Well, we are almost running out of the nugget reduce. Tony Beets stumbled upon a deserted gold drum in Nugget Creek, which changed into filled with heaps of gold, simply ready to be observed. After dropping nearly $1 million in a lightning catastrophe, Tony changed into confronted with what appeared like not possible odds. However, with not anything to lose, he guessed everything to repair this forgotten relic buried deep in the desolate tract. Let's dive in. The stakes have been excessive, and every second changed into a struggle towards the clock inside the unforgiving terrain of the Yukon. Rescuing gold within the wilderness now, this wasn't just any old piece of equipment. The Trommel changed into a relic constructed by means of a few impartial miner approximately 30 years lower back and handiest used for a season before it changed into left to rust. Even if others had walked far from it, he noticed gold in which others saw junk. This hulking metal beast, about 40 FT lengthy and transferring on wheels, become designed to sift through dirt and spit out the worthless rubble. And great of all, not like stationary dredges, this one becomes cellular. The mobility appealed to him, in particular given how unpredictable gold searching may be. The Trommel held a hidden feature that would exchange the entirety about their hunt, a secret that might quickly make all the difference. Determined to make it paintings, the miner decided to pull out all stops. That's not a difficult ball. You cross over there, you are taking the solution, you get on your work, so we are going to need to friend up one way or the other. Oh, and now we're buddying up? The Trommel had been abandoned in the Yukon wilderness, which supposed his team might have to haul it out piece via piece and produce it lower back to the camp. All in the center of an area with mountain roads barely wide sufficient to suit their vehicles. He sent his youngest son, Mike, to guide the manor. They had to pass over 100 miles through a number of the roughest roads out there with a plan to complete the venture in only 3 days. But getting there wasn't the hardest part. Getting this Trommel onto the ferry became wherein things began to get dicey. The truck they had been the use of turned into over 80 feet long, and there have been questions on whether the ferry may want to even deal with the weight. Mike had confidence within the truck, however the hassle became that if they couldn't use the ferry, the most effective other path turned into to power 175 miles in the other course to locate any other bridge. This might consume up time, cash, and maximum of all, persistence. At one factor, Mike made a mild, funny story approximately already spending their first $1,000 without even noticing, however anybody knew the humor turned into only a way to hide the anxiety. The essential process turned into to get that Trommel from Moose Creek to the camp in 3 days, and the clock become ticking. Day 1 started out with breaking down the conveyor, then on day, they went for the sluice field. Cody Hunter controlled to get it separated without too much problem. Finally, it became time to head after the largest element, the 20-ton drum. That's whilst things began going sideways, sort of received a fortune for it. Right, yes, yeah, and the frightening aspect is now they're starting to get it. The real task came when Kevin tried to cut a steel plate that had been welded to one of the Trommel's legs. This plate changed into presupposed to guide the body, but as quickly as Kevin started slicing, the Trommel began tipping over, nearly crushing him. It changed into simplest by means of sheer success that Kevin controlled to break out unharmed. Just as everyone concept the chance had exceeded, every other worker slipped and fell into the drum. Causing a second of absolute panic, no one became hurt, but it became a close name, and all people stepped again to reassess the situation. The stakes had been clean. Get it performed, however do not get. Once they controlled to get the drum loose, they loaded it up onto a Navy tank transporter. There became no time to waste. The intention became to get the Trommel and its parts to the dual carriageway before nightfall, and they had only 3 hours left. And if that wasn't enough stress, the street turned into horrible, choppy, and muddy. A few instances the truck leaned up to now to at least one facet that it seemed like it'd topple over. Eventually they were given stuck in thick mud, leading to a whole halt in the journey. Luckily, they had a backhoe loader available which controlled to pull them out of problem. It was already nighttime by the point they made it back to the camp. The veteran miner became pleased whilst all of the pieces were in the end delivered again to camp. He gathered his group expressing appreciation for his or her difficult paintings and cruel conditions. Rain, snow, and near injuries had been steady obstacles, but in some way they had managed to make it through, even supposing it meant setting all mining operations on hold. The fact changed into, for the one's 3 days, the entire group had found no gold in any respect, in reality because they were focused on moving the Trommel. Just while things appeared higher, more problem was at the manor. Tough leadership, more difficult terrain, just whilst things seemed to relax, there was extra problem. One of the trucks wearing the equipment flipped over and the driving force was stuck interior. Meanwhile, the pro gold miner's competitor, Ness, wasn't having much higher good fortune. He had set a target of 1,000 ounces of gold, and his team were running almost non-prevent to get there. But after weeks of digging, they found out that the hole they have been operating on was empty. Then, to make matters even worse, Cruz, one of Ness' men, flipped his 30-ton rock truck whilst using inside the pit. With clinical assist some distance away, everybody feared the worst. However, by some means Cruz came out without extreme injuries. They flipped the truck lower back over, and in just a few hours, they have been mining again. It had been a hard, fruitless month for Ness's group. However, they nevertheless managed to collect 45 ounces of gold. The Yukon veteran knew that the actual fee of the trauma changed into more than just about finding gold in those 3 days. It wasn't about the quick profit, it became approximately a protracted term plan. Unlike the vintage dredges, which have been slow and hard to keep, the Trommel turned into cellular, and mobility became the important thing. By getting this device operating, the miner may want to preserve a steady gold output and keep away from the regular downtime that had plagued his older equipment. The real desire became that after setup, I wager I'd as an alternative learn how to read, due to the fact we missed something within the license. We can handy a strip. The Trommel might change the whole thing, making the procedure of finding gold quicker and extra green. The declared proprietor had made investments before, like that $1.4 million custom-constructed excavator he offered to tackle the hard Yukon terrain. That 100-ton machine had made the procedure of moving heavy rock faster, and the identical kind of performance was what he was betting on with the Trommel. This wasn't pretty much pulling out more gold. It changed into about transforming his entire operation. After getting the Trommel returned to camp, the prospector centered all his interest on getting it up and going for walks before the Yukon wintry weather hit. He had no hobby in splitting his sources anymore. He knew that if he may want to get the Trommel operational, his group would be in a position to obtain the blessings for future years. This system became intended to give them a consistent workflow, unfastened from the regular mechanical troubles that plagued the older dredges. The tough-nosed leader became a practical man, and while he loved a huge payoff, he was in it for the long sport. And this Trommel became a sport changer. Not best did it provide efficiency, however, it additionally simplified the logistics of gold mining. Instead of transporting dust from one place to some other, the Trommel may want to do the activity proper in which the gold changed into discovered. It saved time, reduced down transportation expenses, and intended the miner had a clear edge over the opposition. With the Trommel on his facet, he may want to process extra cloth faster, giving him the risk to hit his production goals without relying on unreliable gadget. The Trommel itself became like a treasure chest. Not because it held gold, however, because it gave the mining expert the method to liberate gold hidden inside the floor extra efficiently than before. It became a pass that showed the miner's willingness to evolve and take risks. He had executed it earlier than like when he spent over $1 million on a custom-constructed excavator, and he became doing it once more with the Trommel. These calculated dangers were not just a gamble. They have been an approach to improve productivity and stable his lengthy-term position within the gold mining industry. Still, with each reward comes a risk. The mining boss was no stranger to controversy. He changed into recognized for his difficult personality. Some called it no nonsense. Others' idea it changed into too harsh. He wasn't one to sugarcoat anything. His reputation took a hit whilst he accepted of a funny story that went two ways. One of his workers poured gasoline into a dredge pond and set it on fire along with his blessing. It was all stuck on digital camera and brought about severe legal problem. Someone watching the display pronounced it to the Yukon mining authorities, and the declare holder ended up getting fined for violating the Yukon Waters Act. The Shaggy Dog story cost him $31,000, and despite the fact that he usually the first rate and admitted he must have stepped in, the incident did nothing to soften his tough man image. I realize a number of humans up right here are surprised, however they ain't casting off me that smooth. No, you're a survivor, I've stated that. This wasn't the first time the mining mogul's ways were given him in warm water. On the display, his management fashion regularly drew grievance. There was one episode wherein he lashed out at his son Kevin for no longer preserving a system nicely. Kevin's mistake valued the crew both time and money, and the miner didn't keep again. Viewers had combined reactions. Some understood his frustration, others concept he turned into too difficult on his son. But the mining leader wasn't simply tough for the sake of it. He changed into a stickler for protection. He knew that mining became a dangerous task, and one mistake may want to result in severe injury or worse. He did not tolerate everybody breaking protection policies, and that strictness got here from his preference to hold his group safe. His leadership style changed into approximately pushing people to their limits, however it additionally created quite a few pressure. With massive investments like his $1.4 million excavator on the line, the gold hunter felt the want to push his crew to do their high quality. It wasn't always clean and it took a toll on morale, however it changed into the way he knew a way to get effects. The miner by no means forgot his roots. He came from a modest historical past developing up on a farm in Holland, and he hadn't continually had it clean. In 1984, he moved to Dawson City to chase the gold dream, and the promise of large money drew him to Yukon. He commenced as a device operator, step by step running his way as much as coping with predominant claims, and ultimately leasing out land to different miners. Even now, with millions of greenbacks well worth of gold flowing through his operations, the mining veteran became pushed by greater than just money. He and his group saw themselves as current-day gold hunters. The thrill of the search, the chase for that subsequent huge discover. Obstacles came each war and they met them head-on, not just for the payday, however, for the affection of mining. They were out there with excessive tech machines digging and sifting through the dirt, hoping for that subsequent huge strike, usually searching ahead to the subsequent venture. The fulfillment got here, however, extra troubles had been proper at the back of it, but you had to go to Parker to get a few water rights.